All right, we're live. I was waiting for that countdown to find me. This is Sondra Shannon, and I'm your host of today's show on the Live with Sondra show. I'm the CEO of Gatemaster Technology, and I'm very excited to introduce you to my next guest. We're going global, talking to someone who is working in the safety aspects of attractions. And we're talking today about safety first. And today's session's title is Innovative Approaches to First Response and Injury Tracking. Today's guest is the co founder of SportsMed, a comprehensive app designed to streamline injury tracking and documentation for clubs and event organizations. She's an expert in customer safety and first response and concussion management. Gosh, I'm excited to talk to her about that because I just had a kid go through a concussion and not be able to play basketball. So we're going to be talking about some of that today. She's focusing on efficient, accurate reporting in high pressure situations. She's pioneered digital solutions that replace traditional paper forms and enabling real time incident reporting across departmental communications. One thing she can't live without is her relaxing time. I like the sound of that. I definitely love my R&R and getting outside, walking alongside the beach, walking alongside her beach town in Australia to gather her thoughts, regroup, and focus. This is somebody who's also been working with my husband as part of the 10x impact that we're trying to make on the world. And I'm very excited to introduce you to her because she and I have just had so much fun talking about both our interest in this business, but also I've been learning so much about first response and the safety of what's happening inside of our parks and these big organizations. So without further ado, please let me introduce you to Jennifer Mifsud. Oh my gosh, Jennifer, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. And I know that that your last name came out wrong. Would you mind just telling the audience your last name so they know how to find you? I do apologize if I got that wrong.
That's okay. Many people do. It's Mifsud. So the F is before the S. So Mifsud.
Mifsud. Thank you for clarifying that. I do want to make sure people can find you. And for whatever reason, it came out mostly because it came out the way it did, but mostly because I'm excited to talk to you today. One, I hope my introduction was okay. Is there anything that
I
you want
love
to
that
tell?
introduction.
Oh, okay, awesome. Well, I also want to just mention before we jump into all of these things that you are an expert in your space in, is just how we kind of got to know each other, which is through Jake. He's a 10X coach for Grant Cardone, and we are a 10X shop here. So I know from our conversations and also talking to him that we share a lot of similar philosophies with regards to business and growth.
Yep.
And I'm very excited to have you on the show today for that exact reason, because collaboration and helping each other build our businesses and build a better world, in my opinion, because I think ultimately, when you look at what's happening in the world, we're all connected at times by business and these amazing things that we're doing to innovate and make the world a better place and make these processes easier for businesses, which is why I'm really excited to talk to you about SportsMed. So to get started, I'm just curious, what inspired you to create the first aid reporting app that you have, and how does it address gaps in traditional injury tracking methods?
Good question. So I've been in the business or in sports for over 10 years now. And the gap that I saw was with incident reports, it is still old school. Everything else has evolved. Our tracking for elite athletes, our heart rate training, those sort of things, our nutrition, our mindset, everything within sports, theme parks, everything else has evolved except that back end of reports for incidents and tracking players coming back to play from injury. We're still using a paper base. So if there was an injury, you write it on a piece of paper and then it gets filed. No one knows what happens with this. Team managers, coaches might be across it, but no one else is. then why I started creating SportsMed, because I do have 20 years graphic design and marketing behind me as well. So I've got that technology brain. And I thought there has to be an easier way. We had a major incident with a player. The sports trainer wrote up the incident report. The next week at training, we asked him for that incident report. And his comment was, "I'm sorry, it was in my back pocket and it went through the wash." And the incident report was gone. So that's when my brain started working, going, I need to bring in technology into the incident report, the tracking. And look, I know some clubs are already doing that. I know there's sporting clubs, there's companies that have created their own sort of version. This is more global. I want it to be easy, user-friendly. There's no licenses. So once you've put your company or your club has purchased SportsMed, then everybody involved has access. And that's why it's so much easier for our clubs.
Yeah, well, and I know we've talked a little bit about not only in sports, because I actually had a kid, believe it or not, who one of my youngest went to a water park last summer and fell and hit his head, had a concussion. I mean, now granted, he was fooling around, doing as 12-year-olds do with his buddies. Maybe even trying to impress a girl with this one. I sometimes wonder because he does. That seems to be something he does. But he ended up getting a concussion, and then I didn't realize this, but his basketball team wouldn't let him play. I think for 2 games following that, and when we had our last conversation, you kind of got me thinking about that because I didn't understand the rules. I just knew that he had a concussion and that, he would need to wait out a certain time. But you and I've talked a little bit about how both these sporting groups, sports teams have to be able to also track these things so that they can, one, keep the players safe, but also be they can also be in compliance with whatever regulations and things that are out there. Is that kind of what you're talking about here?
Absolutely. So one of the forms on SportsMed is the concussion protocol. So here in Australia is 21 days out from the time of the symptoms. So what happens, especially like basketball would be the same. You've got different people each week. So how do they know when that player is able to come back? And as we spoke about, I've got players where I coach or where I train, and the player will lie and the coach will lie that they can come back because they want to play. So it's our job as sports trainers, our job as first responders to say, no, I can follow their protocol because I know that the other trainer has put this information in and said that, no, they're only at stage 1, return to play for protocol. And then the next trainer next week can write down that they're on stage 2. So we can track this. So there's no relying on the player to give us their honest feedback and where they're at with their recovery. And it shouldn't be on the player to monitor their recovery, and they've got to tell us how they're feeling and what their symptoms are and if they're subsiding. But it's our responsibility to track that. And when you've got multiple sports trainers coming in each week, it's not always the same person. So they all need to be up to date with where especially concussion is massive at the moment. It always has been, but it seems to be pretty prevalent in the media at the moment globally. So having something like SportsMed that everyone can track it, once we've filled out that form on SportsMed, it goes to a database, a Google Sheets, that the head trainer or whoever has those admin rights can come in and they can track everything as well. So they're across multiple groups in the club.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is it's not just about compliance, right? Because what I learned about concussions with my son is that the injury becomes worse if they are re-injured during that period they're healing. Absolutely. Right? It's way more dangerous during that time. So it isn't just about regulation, it is about protecting players and also with regards to, businesses, probably even protecting them a little bit because,
Mhm.
or organizations, we should say, because they have access to this information and they can make the right decisions for the various players that may have suffered injury inside and outside of the game. Because, like I said, my son was just playing at a water park and acting
Mhm.
silly and ended up slipping and falling and hitting his head. And, he wasn't allowed to play basketball for 2 weeks. So, and the 21 days kind of makes sense to me because that's about probably how long it took for him before he was able to get back in the game.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned some of the features that you have in
Mhm.
managing concussions and documenting these incidents, which is super important, primarily for. I'd like to switch gears just kind of into attractions because that is a big part of our audience. But in what ways can attractions and other high traffic venues benefit from streamlining injury documentation, especially in cases of customer incidences?
Oh,
Incident.
absolutely. So I work at a theme park, as we know. So being the first responder at this theme park for the last 4 or 5 seasons now, um, it's really important for documentation. And I know that theme parks would have their own versions of this. And this is, like we said, streamlining it so everyone's across the board. So, as a first responder, of course, we're the first person with this guest, and we're writing down the injury that has occurred and how it has occurred. So, if it is a ride, for instance, or there's a path that needs fixing, that can then go to the next department. So, our report will go to our park ops, and then if they've got that all neatly in a spreadsheet, then it's easy to email that data over to, say, maintenance, because they need to have a look at this area. At the end of the week, we've got all the data collated in one sheet because there is more than a dozen first responders at our theme park. So if all of us are writing incident reports in this one app, it then goes to that one spreadsheet. So then park ops can have a look at that. And then they can say, look, we've had 3 incidences in the same spot. We need to raise this as a high risk, and then go to that and get that fixed first before the park opens for the next week. Because our park at the moment is not open for the 7 days. We're seasonal as well. So we have time, whereas some theme parks, as I know over on your side of the world, open 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year. So it's really important that we know which department needs to work on what areas, and so that we can minimize the risks to our customers, because we want our customers to come into the theme parks and have a great time and go home and be safe. So if we've got something like SportsMed that from first response all the way to park ops to maintenance to cleaning to work safe, we're all across the same thing. And then at the end of the year, we can sit down and collate that data and see how we went, and see what we need to fix for the next year. So it's
Yeah,
really important for all departments to have this app.
yeah, and I hadn't even thought of that till just now, how critical this data is and serves other departments like maintenance,
Yeah,
right? Having access to that data in a way that you can share it and make better decisions about the park.
yeah,
And, it makes sense. If somebody slips and falls in the same spot 3 times, there might be an elevated risk in that area. And
that's right.
you wouldn't be able to know what that looked like had you not collected this data to show that that's an
Mhm.
issue sometimes. And look, I talk about this quite often, a lot, both with the gate master, my ticketing partners, so those
Mhm.
parks that I work with, as well as the on this show. I had a lovely conversation last week with Renee Zell. We were talking about how many of the parks are suffering only because they don't have access to the right data,
Yeah,
right? And when you don't have access to the right data, it makes it very difficult to make those decisions that would not only move the business forward, in my case, when we deal with ticketing and revenue, but in
mhm.
your case, understanding the the safety concerns and where you might have elevated risks in your park. because the same thing keeps happening over and over again. And, while incident reports are filled out by hand, I mean, I still see it today in parks. Um,
Definitely.
that is not going to give you real-time access to that data.
No. And it's also important for maintenance and park ops, and they're probably thinking, look, we've got our own systems, but they've got to think that as a first responder, we're also always called the what if team. So we see the what if this happens. So we can bring those things out to and make park ops and maintenance aware of what if this happens? And they're like, oh, didn't think of that. So this brings the first responders into those conversations that maintenance might be having or park ops managers might be having. So it's bringing the whole team together so we're all working in a holistic area together. And that's why this data, having that data straight in our face, we all think differently and we all see different aspects that somebody else might not see. So that's really important when it comes to data collection as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can't measure. We said this the other day, you can't manage what you can't measure, right? So if there is a problem, but it goes unknown simply because the data wasn't there to address it,
Mm-hmm.
that is where I could see many institutions and organizations having challenges with that. But when we talk about challenges, what challenges have you encountered when integrating safety protocols across different departments? And, how do you overcome that? What's the conversation that you typically have with parks ops and maintenance and all the different parts of these operate, of these institutions, because everybody's got their own thing driving their departments, their own
Mm-hmm.
things that they have to measure. And I'm sure that what you're saying is, first responders in parks need to advocate for certain things that are actually outside of their scope
Yep.
of service, right?
Exactly.
So, what are some of those challenges that you see in integrating something like this?
The main challenge is getting told we've already got this. We've already got something in place. And it's like, yes, but there's always new things evolving and you need to evolve with the times. There's also, you guys don't need to worry about that. We've got this side of things. You just worry about making sure guests are safe and you're patching them up. I also get a lot of budgets. We're so, especially sporting clubs. If we go back to the sports side of things, we don't have a budget. It's not within our budget. Or a lot of theme parks is we've been running like this for a long time and we've been doing fine. It's like, yes, but we used to always have paper. We never had laptops, and now look at us. Like, we have to evolve with the times, and this is just the next step in the evolution of first aid, injury report writing, and safety protocols. So that's moving with the times. But yeah, I do get a lot of barriers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure. And I'm sure a lot of it is just the lack of understanding of why it's important at times, because like we mentioned earlier, you have the different departments within
Mm-hmm.
an organization who are focused on the things that they're focused on, but we're talking cross departmental collaboration here. And when it comes to safety concerns, what advice would you give organizations that are trying to achieve that cross departmental collaboration? Because that's one of the things that I was most excited about having you on today about, when I saw one, we talk a lot about collaboration on this show,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I believe collaboration is huge. We collaborate within our organizations, we collaborate with outside of our organizations. You and I are collaborating, you and Jake are collaborating, right? Like, there's so many, collaboration is so huge, but it can be an issue for some organizations to encourage not only communication, but again, my question is, and I'm sorry to kind of take us off, is, what advice would you give to those parks trying to achieve that cross departmental
Uh,
collaboration?
to give it a go, I think there's nothing wrong with giving something new a go. So, and give it a fair go. So not just, oh, we'll try it out for a week and see how we go. It needs to be implemented for at least 3 months and see how it's running. And the good thing with SportsMed is that I can create forms that are specific to your theme park or your club. So we can change some of those forms for them, and just give it a go. And if not, then go back to what you were using previously. But you need to be open minded, and that's probably my biggest advice. Just give it a go. Even where I work at the moment, like just trying to, we use iPads, which is fantastic, but they're big and bulky. I have this in my pocket. So why would I need to run around when I've got an emergency and carry bulky things or even a piece of paper? So having
Right.
everybody put their phone on them, and it's just so much easier. And yeah, it's just give it a go is my
Yeah.
main take.
I love that advice because I think a lot of times in business, we just have to give it a go, right? Like that is how innovation happens,
Mm-hmm.
is usually people who are early adopters who just decide I'm going to try something, even though I'm scared, even though it's not what we've been doing all these years, even though it is a new scary thing, because technology sometimes is seen as that. I mean, I come from a time when we were implementing point of sale and we were transitioning people from just Casios to computers. And
Yep.
the amount of times I saw somebody throw their body over this Casio in resistance to learning how to use a computer. And then today, we all carry computers around anyway. So, they
Like,
just were afraid of that, right? And so I love that that's your advice, because I don't disagree with regards to innovation. A lot of it is we're trying to solve problems,
yes.
and you have to just trust a process, especially if that process is going to lead you to better outcomes in the future.
Mhm.
One thing that you mentioned earlier that I thought was really interesting was how, you've been a part of safety departments and first responders for all of these organizations,
Mhm.
and you noticed a problem
Yep.
and you came up with an idea to fix it. I can't tell you how many innovative ideas I've come up with for our technology that just came out of either me being in a park and having an unpleasant experience,
Mhm.
or we developed a thing called park tabs many years ago, that when the original chips on credit cards first started coming out, the first original chips.
Yep.
Well, in the beginning, they're more waterproof today, but in the beginning they did not do well with water.
Yep.
And one year when they first came out, I spilled my coffee in my purse. All of my chips went bad, at least any of them that got hit by the coffee. I mean, literally just dumped a whole thing of coffee in my purse. And it occurred to me like, oh my gosh, we're going to be using these credit cards in water parks. And
Yep.
that's where the development of park tabs came from. So,
Mhm.
I love guests like you who are innovative. I would say even probably inventors to some
Mhm.
degree, because you saw a problem, you created a solution for, and here we are talking about it today. And as I speak to you and realize there is a real need for this, especially for those parks. There's been some major acquisitions in the park space. I'm sure many of you guys have heard of these things that are happening where we have
Yep.
multiple parks merging. And not only do we need cross departmental collaboration, we probably need cross business collaboration to some degree when it comes to safety, because, um, many parks are operating several locations at a time.
Definitely. And the other thing is too, Sondra, is with SportsMed, it's not just the collaboration and the data collection of injuries. It's also got the forms for the medical side, the side of medical, for players, what medications players are on, or your staff. Like in comparison to the rest of the world, our theme park is quite small, but we've still got over 250 to 300 staff. Now, as a first responder, I need to be across any medical issues that I need to know about. We have diabetics, we have epilepsy, we have a lot of other issues that I need to know. So I need to be able to monitor those staff, especially when we hit 42 degrees here. And it's hot, and I need to make sure that my diabetics have got their food with them, that they don't hypo. So if I've got that information in my phone and I know who's working, I always make sure that our first responders are across that. And I'll walk over to that ride and ask them, are you okay? Do you need anything? So that's another aspect of SportsMed, that when you've got several parks, you need to be able to make sure that you're looking after your staff as well. And it's the same as players. I work with what we call the Masters AFL, and these guys are 35 to 65, 75 that are running around the field, and
Yeah.
they on heart medication, things like that. I need to know those sort of things as well, and making sure that we've got our first responders are across that, and what do we do if they have an injury or if they have a heart attack on the field, or those sort of things have to be recorded, and we need to have that readily available, not just, oh, Park Ops knows about that, or Park Ops knows that that staff member is a diabetic. Us, the first responders, need to know as well. So if I have this on my phone, then it makes it so much easier and safer for our staff while they're working.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you brought up the staff, because I know here I've had conversations. Now, forgive me because I don't know much about POTS, but I know that that condition we're seeing more and more, especially with young people. And these young people are working in our parks, and I believe that with that condition in particular, like overheating is a problem.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so if you don't know that about a team member and something goes wrong, you may not be able to serve them at the best of your ability, which is very valuable information, because I am of the belief that if our people are doing well, then our parks are doing well. But the vice versa is true, right? If the park people are not well and healthy and able to do what they need to do, I mean, working in a park, long hours, long days, long seasons,
and standing for long periods of time.
yes.
That's the other thing. Like we've got park ride attendants that are standing for those long periods of time. We do rotate them, and we keep all that in check, but at 42-degree days, even just standing for 10 minutes out in the sun is quite demanding. So if you've already got a pre-existing illness as well, on top of that heat exhaustion, that's just a issue waiting to happen. So having that data on our phones at the ready just makes it so much easier, and that's where the data collection comes into play. And the other thing with data collection as well, Sondra, is when we're talking about sports, and not just football, I'm talking about netball, basketball, soccer, any other teams, collecting a player's data and injuries, if they want to transfer to another club, that information can then be so easily emailed to the club. So then they're keeping track of concussion. Things like that. That is really important. So your son's been concussed this year. Now, if he moves to another club, unless you tell that club that that's what he's had, and he's not going to tell them,
Yes.
because he doesn't want that recorded. So they can't hide from the fact that there's number one concussion. And once we get to the 3 or 4 concussions, it brings up the red flags of whether to keep playing or not. So having that collaboration with clubs as well is really, really important. And the same with theme parks. If you've got several theme parks, and I'm not sure if it works the way I'm thinking, that some of the staff may go from park to park and work in different parks, if you've got all that information in one place, then it doesn't matter if they're at different sites, because we've got the data in one place anyway. So just having that data collection, being able to email it through so easily, or having it ready, that player transfer information is really, really important.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting, and also it makes sense because, like you said, the players themselves, I know with my son, he's like, I didn't do anything wrong. Why can't I play? A lot of times they see that as a negative thing, when really we just want them to get better. And then
Absolutely.
there's an elevated risk with multiple concussions, and we have to care for our players. We have to care for our teams, and I just love what you're doing, and I love the innovative approach that you have, and this big vision that you have of
Yep.
being able to share this data across organizations in a safe, secure way that allows us to have the information that we need while still respecting the privacy of people. And
Yep.
I do really appreciate your approach to this. Now, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yep. Definitely.
Okay. I'm getting a little notices from our studio that I might have lost a little bit of a connection there. But I think
Yeah.
you still had a lot to say. I could hear you just fine. But
Oh,
I do
good.
have a question, with regards to organizations that are still using those paper forms and for incident tracking, and what advice you would give them in terms of transitioning to a digital platform. I know you mentioned just do it, which I think is definitely overcoming the fear of that. But what are the steps that they need to put into place to move to a system like that, if any?
The steps would be to have a talk to myself, and I can help them transition. So we can start simple and have the staff or the players' information put into the app, and then just having a chat about how they want to use the app and what they foresee this app is going to do for their park or their club. And just collaborate with me, and I can help them, and I will step them through. It's not just a matter of they purchase the app and off they go, they're on their own. So that customer service, definitely. And like I said before, I'm happy to change the forms to suit their needs as well. Some clubs have different things that they like to add in, put extra fields in, and we can customize it to their park or to their club. So just giving it a go, like I said before, and having a chat to myself and my team, and we can actually help them make it an easier transition and do it slowly. Do it
Yeah,
slowly.
I
Yeah.
I I agree. I think that what I really love about what's happening in technology right now in the not, in all segments of business, but primarily in the attractions, the sports space, is
Hmm.
that we are seeing this type of innovation, and you don't have to figure it out.
No.
There are experts like you who have bumped up against these problems, who are implementing these systems in parks already. You use it in your park.
Yep.
And, when that's really what I hope to offer in this show are the expertise of people like you who can help move that needle forward a little bit with regards to
Mhm.
innovation. I know sometimes people are afraid of innovation because, they fear that people will are some fear that people are eliminated from the process, but the truth is it really just makes people more accurate.
Absolutely. And the thing is too, especially because I work with a lot of regional clubs, these are farmers that get together on a Saturday and kick the football around the paddock. And it's fantastic, and it brings the community together, and it's that community spirit that we love, especially here in regional Victoria. But some of the trainers are quite young. So
Yeah.
I like to go in, and I'm quite happy to come into people's clubs, community clubs, and have a look at their sports training facility, see what their rooms like, see what they need, and just suggest things, especially with the app. They might need something else included. They might need to put alerts on for the players that are out on the farms that are a bit remote. So having that collaboration with the community and with each club, and going in and helping what they need to set up a really good sports training area with the compliance and the sports app as well, then they know they're across everything. And it doesn't matter whether they're old school or new. So, and that's the other thing that we face as well. Like you said, what barriers do I face? Sometimes it is that a sports trainer might have been in the club for the last 20, 25 years, and this is the way he's done it. And then all of a sudden, that person's not coming back this season because he's retired, and he's taken all that information that he's got in his head and he's left the club. And now this club have brought in new sports trainers, and they've got no clue how anything is run. So having something as simple as jump onto SportsMed, get all the players' information, and then we can run it from there. So having that easy transition once again from whether it's clubs or theme parks.
Yeah, I agree. And what I love about you having this cross between the sports complex industry and the theme park and water park space is that there are some of these things that we share in common as, to me, sports complex are attractions.
Yes.
I ran a laser tag facility in the late 90s, and we had leagues and people who came and played over and over again. I see a lot of where we weren't doing the things we should have been doing because people got injured. I mean, you're running around an arena with,
That's right.
and people fell, people bumped their heads. I mean, there were lots of things going on. Back then we did record it on paper in the event that an incident happened, but just from my own experience running a facility like that, I could definitely see where this one minimizes not only some of the risks the business has, but also keeping those things organized and accessible so that they can make the best decisions that they need to make for both their patrons, their players, and guests, or even their employees, as you mentioned. Well,
Absolutely. Even with incident reporting, like you just said, it was paper based. It needs to have multiple copies as well. So one copy should go to the customer or the player, whoever's injured. Then they might need to take another copy that might need to go to the hospital, or they go see their doctor and the doctor wants to see the incident report, and it's usually on paper and it's like, oh, we'll photocopy it and I'll email it over. Whereas now I can just grab that data and email it. I can just email one email with 4 different places and it goes straight away. So it's also that transparency as well. It's just so much easier to get data across different places and
yeah.
different people that have to have that information.
Yeah, and not only that, it probably saves them a lot of time. Because if you're
Absolutely.
scanning that paper and then figuring out where it's got to go,
Mhm.
and that's if you can find the right paper, because who knows if their filing systems are accurate at all times, because there are plenty of times where information is not stored the way that it should be stored. Those of us in technology understand that that is something that we have to work with all the time, is how is the data stored, how is it accessed, how to recall that data,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Which is what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
for my last question for you, if you don't mind, because I know are you doing okay on time?
Yeah, fine. Okay. Yep.
Awesome. I'm just excited to have you here. And also, my last question for you is just, with all of these advancements that you see, I'm curious what you believe the future of first response technology to be in industries like sports complexes, sports teams, but also in theme parks and water parks and any other types of attractions out there. What do you see being the biggest innovation that's going to be happening moving forward?
I think where we're at with SportsMed, going to app, going digital, it hasn't, there are a few out there at the moment, but it hasn't really been. So I think the future is it's going to be on apps. I know some people are very wary about putting private information on apps. So I think it's that the next future thing is that security. We already have everything passworded, coded. So we have put in that privacy side of things. But I think the future is just going to get bigger and better with that first response. I know it's a bane of some people's existence, especially theme parks. I run events as well. We're first responders at events, and it's that what if team that we have to sit there because if there's an emergency, we need them. But if not, it was a waste of money. But by having the app, it just makes it so much easier for data so we can collect that. So the future, it's just the future's anything. I just not even sure how big this can be, but it can be pretty big. So
I think
I
it'd be
would like to
huge.
add, like on the SportsMed app, I'd love to start putting some courses on as well. So someone like yourself can jump on SportsMed and do a short online concussion course for free. and then you're across that. Or if I've got new responders, maybe having a course of what diabetes is, what is our management protocol to refresh, and things like that. So we can grow this as big as we want, and that's why collaboration would be great. So then I can talk to people that are out in the industry, and they might have some amazing ideas but just don't know how to implement them. So then we just grow it even bigger. So the future can
Well,
be anything we want.
well, and I think it's fair to say too, I know with you being in Australia, me being here in the States, I mean, we are seeing more and more that people are having conditions that would affect their time when they're in parks and attractions. And that, as I've been with working more and more with teams who are focused on accessibility, we also talk a lot about, what happens if somebody who, might chokes on food because they were predisposed to that because of something that their family is dealing or their caregivers are dealing with, and making the parks aware of that. I know that that is, or chaperones, or I don't know what the proper term in the parks is, but with what we see happening here in the States with more and more children having conditions that need to be likely monitored and or just aware of in the event that somebody is injured or has an accident, or
Mhm.
it just, the sky's the limit as far as what I think needs to happen in terms of innovating the future for first responders. I love that you're on the forefront of that. It makes me so happy to hear that people are thinking about these things, because it's a
Yeah.
different part of the business for me.
Yes.
That we deal with money and revenue and ticket sales, and
Yep.
I sometimes feel like I get to deal with the most fun parts of attractions, which is to me, there's a reason there's a dollar sign on my logo, right? Because we deal a lot with the revenue, but revenues are impacted when people aren't safe.
Exactly. Yeah,
And
and
we
we're on the ground. We can see what's happening, and so that's why it's really important to that collaboration, to see those people, those first responders that are actually on the ground and can see the issues, to step that up into maintenance management, people like yourself, and you're like, okay, you guys have ideas that we probably haven't thought of. So it's really interesting.
That's the thing I love about this industry and this business. It for me has been, when you look at a park, they really do run like mini cities at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely.
And so you need your safety and security. You need your first responders. You have food and beverage operations, and
Hmm.
the other areas of the ops teams, the maintenance teams. I mean, they
Hmm.
really do function like small cities in some ways.
Yep.
When I tell people about the work that I do, because people often ask me like, "Oh, you do point of sale and ticketing? What's the big deal about that?" I'm like, "Yes, but I'm doing this in an environment where we are serving what seems to be multiple businesses at times,"
Hmm.
which is where that collaboration part that you're mentioning is so important,
Definitely.
because you do have to have these different departments speaking and having transparency in order for them to be able to best serve their guests,
Yeah.
which is, an amazing thing that you're doing.
Yeah, and that's a key. You just use that key word, transparency. So a lot of clubs, a lot of theme parks will say, "Yeah, we're over that. We know what's happening, or we'll fix that." And then you don't know what's happening. You don't see that incident report again because it's been filed away. Whereas having that transparency, the whole team, the whole little city is on the same track. We're on the same page. We're all working together. So yeah, the app brings that transparency to the forefront.
And not only transparency, but you don't want to be the guy who put the report through the washer and dryer.
I don't want to be that guy.
You don't want to be that guy. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for your time today. And, just so as we wrap up, I hope that our audience who is looking for solutions in this area will reach out to you and really just, I'm having guests on this show like you because I want to connect people with experts. I believe that expertise means something. And that if an expert is willing to serve an attraction or a sports complex, not only can we collapse time for them, but
Mhm.
you can also give them new innovative ideas that on and ways to better serve their guests. So if somebody would like to get a hold of you that's watching today or listening on our podcast, what's the best way for them to reach you?
The best way is they can find my website, which is sportsmed.net.au, or they can email me on admin@sportsmed.net.au, or my phone number. They can call me, text me on 0457 361 978. And I'm always happy to talk, collaborate, as you said, like experts, even any app developers, like if they've got any other ideas, because that then the future is now bringing in those apps and that technology that then becomes a bit above me, and I would love to talk to a technician about that. But there's also the people that are running theme parks for the last 50 years that probably see something that I don't, and we can add that to SportsMed.
Yeah,
So
I love that. You're focusing on the feedback of your guests. And the other thing is, at the end of the day, like you're saying, and I feel the same way. You know, I had a lot of experience in my early days in databases, but I don't code in the latest code, yet I run a tech company because collaboration is the key. And we mentioned earlier that we met through the through Grant and Grant Cardone and the 10X mindset that he is focused on helping people achieve their goals and big realities. And one of the things that did you know I did all of Elena's masterminds? Did I ever tell you that?
Oh, no.
I think I'm one of a handful of people that did all of them at the original group. And the one thing that she said to me, and I just want to leave this with you, but also the audience, is empires are not built by one person. We have to collaborate with each other. We have to work together to ensure the success of everybody. And, I love that. And I just hope that resonates with you. I know that it does, because we've had such a thoughtful, mindful conversation about collaboration. And I just want to, again, thank you for being one on this show, a part of this empire that I'm trying to build over here. And if there's ever anything I can do to assist you in building your empire, you or anyone listening here, I'm sharing this information with the world simply because I know that voices like yours need to be heard. And I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much, Sandra. It's been an amazing experience, and I love to collaborate even more. So hopefully we can hear from any of the listeners and around the world. It'd be great.
Yeah. And hopefully I'm going to get to meet you in person soon.
Absolutely.
Over here.
No,
or I'll come to see you. That's on my bucket list. I have not been to Australia yet. And I'm sad to say it is that I haven't been yet. I feel like I'm getting too old to continue to say that. So I'm going to need to make my way that.
Yeah, I'll have to get you and Jake out here. Definitely.
We would love it. We would love it. Well, thank you again, Jenny. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Sondra. Bye.
Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Live with Sondra, where we're talking about safety first and new innovative approaches to first response and injury tracking. Again, as I always say at the end of this show, if you're an expert in your field, in your space, in your industry, and you've got something that you want to share with the world, especially the attractions industry, because this is where most of the work that I'm doing is being done, and this is where most of the audience here is coming from. I just love the idea of being able to share what is working in sports and moving that into a adjacent industry like attractions, and all that we can do when we collaborate and innovate together. So at the very least, if you didn't get ideas on how you can make things better for your guests and your team in terms of safety and first response, I hope that you heard loud and clear the message again that collaboration is super important. And as one of my mentors says, collaboration is the new currency. So I hope that you reach out to somebody today and collaborate with them, or at least collaborate with them in such a way that you get and gain new understanding of how things could work and the future possibilities of what can happen. So again, I want to thank you all for being here and listening to today's Live with Sondra. I'm Sondra Shannon, signing off, and I'll see you on our next